A couple months ago, I released a series of videos about the Mr. Knight costume, which is based on the book Good Night, Mr. Knight by Dan Yaccarino. In those videos, I featured this makeup here, but I didn't really explain how to do it. I gave kind of a vague sort of description explanation of it while I was wearing it, but I never went through the steps. And a couple of people, both on my Tumblr and on my YouTube, have asked if I could do a full tutorial makeup video for this particular look. So that's what this video is. I really hope it's helpful. I've never filmed something like this before, so please bear with me if some of the shots of me actually putting stuff on are a little bit awkward, but I do hope it helps, and I hope it clearly explains how to do this particular look. To start, I've gone ahead and put on all of my foundation and concealer. That's pretty personal to everyone, so pretty much go with whatever you would usually do under a makeup look. The only thing that I would say is if you want to get kind of that moon-like, maybe not quite alive, a little bit ethereal look that I go for with my Mr. Knight costume, or at least my interpretation of it, I would try to get as much redness out of your face as possible. So I have a fair bit of redness across my nose and in my cheeks, so I went a little bit heavier with the concealer in those areas just to try to get that out a little bit more. So next, I'm going to do a little bit of a contour. I'm just doing my normal contour, which is just under the cheekbones. You can do your nose as well, or anywhere else you would like to do it. And the palette that I'm going to be using for this is actually not a normal bronzer, because again, I want to go for a kind of ethereal, ghost-like look. And so I'm actually going to be using a purple eyeshadow that I'm going to be using later in this look, which is this one from this random palette. I don't use really nice palettes, but I will see if I can find a link to this to put in the description. If I can't, I would just use any warm, fairly matte eyeshadow and do it very, very, very lightly. You can always build it up. It's a lot harder to take it away. So I'm actually going to be looking over here to do that. So you should still be able to see me, but I won't be looking at the camera for this. So that is the contouring done. Now, it'll probably look a little bit silly at this point. Right now, it just kind of looks like I have a purple smudge on my cheek. And the important thing to remember is that this is costume makeup, and it is going to balance itself out eventually. So once you get in all the rest of the black and the dramatic eyeshadow and all of that, this ends up looking a lot better. Right now, it does look a little bit silly. So if you feel like it's not going well, just keep going and it'll probably work out, or at least that's how it works for me. So the next part is going to be eyebrows. The wig that I use for this costume is black, and while my hair is very dark brown, my eyebrows just look a little bit weird with a black wig. Now this step is completely optional, but it is what I do when I'm doing this costume. So I'm going to be using this palette. Again, I will try to find it, but I don't know if it's out there anymore. I just got it off of Amazon. And I will be using this dark black matte eyeshadow. If you can find any dark black matte eyeshadow, which is a mouthful, that will probably work just fine. is another part that does look a little bit silly for the moment, but again, it ends up evening out and it is worthwhile to do it, for me at least, just because of the wig. I'm not great at eyebrows, so I would probably look up somebody who is if you want a full tutorial on how to do that. But the next step I'm going to do is highlighter and an eyeshadow base, for which I'm actually going to be using the same color for both of those. So again, from this first palette, I'm going to be taking this color here, which looks like it's white, but it actually has some shimmery kind of a color shift between purple and blue. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that here, and then all over my eyelid as a base for the rest of the eyeshadow I'll be doing. It'll end up coming back in later as well, but we'll get to that in a bit. So that's that done. Again, looks a little bit silly, but we're about to get to the part that's going to start evening all of these silly things out. Because we're about to start working on the color for the eyeshadow and the bit that comes down here as kind of the starry night. But first, I want to talk about brushes. Because for this, you're going to actually want two different kinds of brushes. You're going to be doing the same thing for the eyeshadow and for this, but this is a much bigger area. So what I do, I have these two brushes here, and this smaller one here I use for the eyeshadow, and then this larger one I use for the area on the forehead, because otherwise you're going to spend a lot of time trying to cover that whole forehead area with just this one brush. So the first color you're going to want to start out with for the fade in from the black into the purple is, of course, the purple. So we're going to come back again to this palette. You're going to be seeing it a lot through the video, but all of these colors are pretty easily replaceable. And you're going to be starting with this dark purple color here. Any matte dark purple of your choosing will work just fine. It could be a warmer purple, it could be a bluer purple. This one is fairly blue, but again, it's just up to whatever you like. And so you're going to want to put that actually pretty high in terms of the eyeshadow, and then you're going to make an outline of where you want the starry night to be, and then blend it out really well so that it blends into your skin, but also blend it fairly far back so that you can overlap the next color on top of it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, so we've gone ahead and done that. I didn't mention earlier, but you want to get the purple up into your hairline. Whether you're using a wig or not, you still want it to blend accurately. So I also forgot to mention that you're going to want to take that same purple color and go in under your eye a little bit. It's just what I do. It makes your eyes look a little bit bigger, which I like, especially in something where you're getting really heavy, dark eyeshadow that can kind of overwhelm everything. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back with the next color. that we've gotten all of the purple done, we can move on to the dark blue. I'm using this, which I will try to put a link to again in the description, but it's a very dark, almost navy blue with a little bit of a shimmer to it. Again, you can substitute in any dark blue. You could use a completely different color. I could see going for a darker purple with a lighter purple. Doesn't really matter, but for my costume specifically, I'm doing this dark blue. And you're just gonna do that pretty much everywhere you did the purple, but a little bit down from when you did the purple. So for here, for example, you have it all the way out to here. For the blue, you're gonna move in a little bit and then just blend. You probably wanna switch between the purple and the blue a little bit while you're blending them, just to try to get that really smooth and to get everything really saturated, and so that the purple doesn't overwhelm the blue or the blue doesn't overwhelm the purple. That's 2 colors done. Now the last one is the black. And we're going to be bringing back this palette, which is the same one I used for my eyebrows, and sure enough, we're using the exact same matte black eyeshadow. And we're going to be putting that only on the lid. You don't want anything into the crease or above so that the colors can really shine there. Only on the lid of your eyelid. And then fill in the rest of this space with black. And you really want to pack it in there, especially if your wig is black, so that it's kind of a smooth, seamless transition from the black here into the black of the hair. And you really do want to get that part pretty far into your hairline so that it blends really smoothly. The next part is eyeliner, and we're actually not going to start on the stars yet. We're going to go in with a black eyeliner, which is just this one. That's the one I'm using, but you can use whatever eyeliner you like. And we're going to do a very, very, very thin line of black just along the top of your eye. You don't really want a wing, you don't want anything really thick or fancy. This is just to make sure that that black goes all the way down to your eyelashes. So I'm going to try to film this. Hopefully it comes across well. This next part is the most fun because we're finally getting to the stars. Now, I use a white liquid eyeliner, which you can see here. I'll try to link that in the description, but you can use any brand of white liquid eyeliner. I don't think a pencil would work really well. I haven't tested it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because I think it would end up smudging around the eyeshadow rather than sitting on top of it. So this part is really fun because you can do whatever you want. You can make them really small, you can make them really tiny. I like to do some ones that kind of look like crosses with little tails, just because those look like a sort of lens flare effect in the stars, and then a bunch of much smaller ones that are just dots. And those go all throughout the forehead bit and around the eyeshadow. I wouldn't put necessarily that many on your eyelid itself because they'll get covered up a little bit by mascara and they probably just won't show up very well, and they also might smudge. Now, one thing about doing this section is that you do have to be pretty careful, and once you start a star, you have to commit to it because it's not impossible, but really difficult to get rid of one. You can go over it with black eyeshadow if you're in the right area, but most of the time you just need to wipe it off and then build that section back up, which is a real pain. It can be really frustrating, so just be careful and go as slowly as you need to. So now that's done. I went fairly light on the ones that look like crosses around my eyes, and I have one larger one here that kind of draws your attention to it. You don't have to do that, but it is nice to have some size variation in them. So the next part is the inner corner of the eyes. I'm going back in with this palette and this white color down here, which I used for the highlight beforehand. And I'm going to go in again with that and kind of pack it in here at the corners of the eyes, which just kind of helps make your eye look a little bit bigger and helps draw attention back towards the center of your face. Almost done with the eyes. The last thing to do is mascara. You can do false eyelashes. I know a lot of people like to do false eyelashes with really dark makeup looks like this. I personally wouldn't recommend that because you put in all of that work to do the color shift and the stars, and doing really large false eyelashes just kind of blocks that out. So I personally am just going to go with normal mascara, but you can do whatever you want. So I'm going in with my normal black mascara. It could actually be cool to do a different color. So you could do maybe white or a dark blue or a dark purple. I haven't personally tested any of those, but it could be interesting to try it out. Almost done now. There's only a couple more steps left and all to do with the lips. I'm going to be using a very dark blue matte liquid lipstick. It's This one here, I will try to link it. I found it on Amazon. So I'm just going to do that. You can line your lips. In fact, you probably should, but I'm not going to because I couldn't find a dark black or dark blue pencil liner for your lips. So you probably should do that. I'm going to go ahead and freehand it and hope it turns out okay. Last step. This one you have to move a little bit quickly to do, but for me, I like to get a little bit of a shimmer in on the lips, so I'm actually going to go back in with this blue eyeshadow that I used around here, and just take it on one finger and dab it very lightly over the lipstick. But you have to do this fairly quickly before it dries, so I'm gonna go do that. So that's the lips done. It doesn't make a huge difference on camera, but in person, especially if you catch it in the right light, it does have a little bit of a color shift, which I personally like, but it's not necessarily something you have to do. So I'm going to go pop the wig on, and that's going to be the look done. So that's the Mr. Knight makeup complete. The wig that I'm using here parts here at the side, which really nicely shows off the makeup work that's on the forehead. And it also kind of helps mirror the makeup in the way that the wig moves. So I could see doing a bunch of different styles of hair with this particular makeup look or with this costume in general, but this is the one that worked really well for me. So I will leave a link to this wig in the description. It is really nicely made, and it doesn't look plasticky at all in person, even though it is 100% synthetic. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helped, especially for those of you who requested it. If you like this video, you can check out my YouTube channel and the rest of the videos there, including a bunch of videos about the Mr. Knight costume. Or you can check out my portfolio, where I have photos of the Mr. Knight costume as well as other costumes up. Or you can also follow me on Tumblr, where I post about the weekly costume videos that I do, though they're actually more like bi-weekly, and where I also occasionally post a couple of extra photos.